This is a 4-stage rocket, I think, depending on how you count the stages, right? So you just calculated that the Saturn V rocket burns 15,000 pounds, or kilograms, sorry, of fuel a second, yes?
Yes.
This is an amazing amount. You must have to have huge tanks to hold all that fuel. Well, yeah, this thing is like 360 feet tall. Okay, these tanks here are just ginormous, and that's what these are. These things are just fuel tanks. Now, when those fuel tanks are empty, do you want to carry them with you?
No.
No, this little bitty tiny thing up there is the only part that makes it to the moon. And so, what do you do with all the weight? Well, what you need to know is that between these stages, right, here's the first stage, second stage. Between those stages, there's a little thing here that blows apart. There's explosive bolts on that. And there's another set of engines there. So as soon as these tanks are done burning, the engines, perfectly good rocket engines, mind you, okay, and those big empty tanks fall away. I believe those ones just fell into the atmosphere, either burned up or just splashed into the ocean. Okay, this is the second stage. That one probably burned up, got high enough that it burned up actually, right? Okay. Then this one falls away. Here's the third stage. This is the part that would actually make it up into orbit around the Earth. Yes? Okay? So this part, the third stage, would orbit the Earth and then eventually at the right time push away from the Earth and head toward the moon. Yeah? Okay? Then up here, on the way to the moon, okay, inside here, this is the part that orbits the moon. Inside here is the part that actually lands on the moon. In fact, gee, I wish I had a model of this. Why, I do have a model of this. Why, look at this. Okay? This is crazy. Check it out. Okay? So here is the second stage engines, yes? Okay? We could take it apart. It's a take apart. Where'd it go? There it is. Okay, and then this here is the third stage, right? So picture this little guy, right? Okay, picture this little guy orbiting the Earth, yes, going around and around and around. At the right time, Matthew Sahibi, okay, this thing blasts away, heads toward the moon, okay? On its way to the moon, it's coasting toward the moon, right? This thing never comes back to Earth necessarily, right? Okay, on its way to the moon. In fact, sometimes this little third stage thing was actually sent to crash into the moon, so the moon would shake, and the seismometers that they put on the moon could record something, you know, to see whether there's oil on the moon. Right? I'm joking. All right. So this thing on its way to the moon would actually separate. This thing would explode and come open. Okay. These things would go flying apart. Let's see if I can do it without breaking it. There we go. Right. Like this. This thing would. These would actually fly off of there. Right, and then here is the lunar excursion module. Okay, this would actually attach. They would blow this rocket off of there, go get rid of it. Right, what that's for, we'll talk about here in a sec. Right, okay, and then this thing would dock with this nose to nose like that, and then together they would fly to the moon. Picturing this, right? They'd fly to the moon. Once in moon, they would establish orbit. They'd use this motor to slow themselves down so they'd be captured by the moon and go around the moon, around and around. Okay? Now, as soon as the right time, as soon as they're right over the landing place or wherever they were supposed to be, right, these guys would separate. This would land on the moon. This would stay orbiting the moon without this on it, right? Okay? This guy, well, hey, hold on, you know. Okay? Then you got to land on the moon. What if you run out of fuel and crash? Well, you might die in the crash, but certainly if you damage this thing, you're not going to get off the moon, and there was no way to go down there and rescue them. Okay, so this guy would simply say, "It was nice knowing you. Head back to Earth. He would live. You would die on the moon." Right? Okay. So this guy lands on the moon. Then you get out and you go off and you play golf, drive a car around, all good American things, right? You know, take some rocks back, right? Okay. Then to get back, remember this guy is still orbiting the moon with this thing still attached. This is called the service module. This is the what is this? Command module. This is the command module. I know this, right? So there they are, orbiting. Yes, so you're picturing this, orbiting the moon. At the right time, with the right timing, this thing launches off, and this separates. This little bitty thing has rocket motors on it, and it can separate. Can I interrupt, guys? Okay, this separates from that, so this becomes the launch pad for this, right? This whole thing separates, and then in space, these guys rendezvous in orbit around the moon. If they don't rendezvous, right, again, this guy goes home, these guys die, right? You know, all these things have to work correctly, right? And then on the way to the Earth, I think they get rid of this guy. This thing separates, yeah. And then this is the heat shields. This, it re-enters the atmosphere just right. And then there's that whole thing that if you come in too steep, you burn up; too shallow, you bounce off into space, right? All this craziness, right? Now, what is this little rocket here for? Do we know? What were they going to do if something went wrong, like the rocket started to fall, like cut timber? What were these guys going to do? Just die? Most Air Force people don't like that notion, right? There's no saving throw. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so here's the deal. These guys, if you look at the way that they're inside that command module, they are on ejection seats. They can pull, there's like this little thing, and there's a big explosive charge that will just launch them out of that command module. Now, if they do it on top of the rocket, right here, they're 360 feet above the ground. If they go firing out of that, they will hit the ground before their parachutes open, because you need about 1,000 feet or so to open a parachute. Something like that. You can't pop it lower than that, right? So what do we do? Well, what they do, the abort sequence was this. If something went badly wrong, if somebody in the control room went, oh no, right? Okay. What they would do is they'd pull this button, and one thing would happen. The first thing would happen was this would separate from that. This little rocket engine had little jets that shot off to the side and would lift this thing up. That would work, wouldn't it? Yeah, lifts this thing up to 1,000 feet, then they bail out, yes? Isn't that funny? To bail out of this thing, you've got to actually lift it up higher. Right? When you think, oh no, I would just want to go down. No. They actually lift the thing way up high so they have actual room to bail out. That's the danger, right? Pilots that fly really low, they can't bail out. I mean, they can, but they'll die, right? Because they'll get thrown 100 feet in the air and you can't survive that, right? You can survive 1,000 feet, you can't survive 100 feet, right? So if something happens to your airplane, you've got to get up really high and then bail out, right? And oftentimes you're down here doing stuff low, and there we go. All right. Think about that. It's physics or something. Here is a sequence that I can show you. Somebody I think a high school teacher made this sequence. It's this cool little GIF. I'll just show it to you. Oh, it's a flash object. I thought it was a GIF. There we go. I'll see if I can put the rocket back together in the time it took to. There it is. They show the first stage making it into space, which is somewhat not true, but I'm not going to worry about it. There it is. There, it's getting rid of that escape, launch tower escape thing. Third stage is heading you toward the moon. This is that little maneuver you've got to do that they were practicing in Apollo 13. They come back. They've got to get the little lunar module. The lunar module. It's the lunar excursion module. I just dropped my lem. Yeah. No, you can't. You can't miss this. It happens about that fast. No, it's only like 4 days or something like that to the moon. Duggan took this apart and something broke. Something breaks every time I take this apart. He had it put together again. Isn't it amazing how fast they get that thing back on the launch pad? That's the thing that always impresses me, is their turnaround. That was a joke. Thank you for laughing. How did Duggan get it put together so well? Duggan's good at that sort of stuff. Oh well. It was never meant to be put back together, really. I know. All right. I'm going to stop it. I think I'm going to stop it. There we go. Oh, not that one. All right. So at this point, let me. What I'd like to do is introduce the human three-stage rocket competition.